Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Alter Confusion Thursday Night Hangout. I, of course, am your host, Charlie, and I am not joined by Zelius. I am joined by the one and only Craig Campbell, mastermind behind Nerdburger Games. So, Craig, come on in.
Whee! Hello.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this is Craig Campbell. He is the mastermind behind Nerdburger Games. You may remember that we talked heavily about his first game, Mergers and Acquisitions, which I have right here.
Fancy.
Yes, it's a fancy. I got the hardcover. I have to have the hardcover. And then his Kickstarter for Capers is currently going on. But we'll talk more about Capers in a little bit. But first of all, this is for Craig for successfly kicking ass in yet another Kickstarter.
I'm going to say this. Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome.
And thank you to Z, who is, where's Z?
He is on his deathbed, I think.
On his deathbed? Well,
no, he's not in the death.
Am I the new guy? Am I the new partner?
Well, actually,
it's a permanent thing.
It's one of those. What was the Kelly Ripa thing where she was basically going through a new co-host?
Oh,
every
sure.
single week?
Rotate the host.
Yeah, we're just rotating hosts.
Well, thank you for this.
You're welcome, sir.
You said on behalf of funding.
Yeah.
I will point out too that a couple days ago, we hit 264 backers, which was a milestone number for me, which was one more than the number of backers that backed Mergers and Acquisitions.
Nice.
And we hit that 264. We beat that original number a little bit before the halfway point of this campaign. Mm-hmm. Which in 263 was the number for the whole Mergers and Acquisitions campaign. Mm-hmm. And as of today, the dollar amount has beaten the old Mergers and Acquisitions.
Yes,
so I will take this in celebration of that.
Good.
Because it's beat it like by 19 or 20 bucks or whatever we're at right now. So hopefully we'll continue to go well for the next couple of weeks.
So yes, it is liquor. It is
put this right here so everybody can see.
Glenlivet. Some single malt Scotch whiskey.
With the bow.
Come on, you got to spruce it up. But just in case, when we get to Capers, this is kind of a hint as to what Capers is. I do have some Prohibition bourbon whiskey. 1920.
Wow. What is this? I've never seen these before. North Texas. North Texas distillery. This wasn't actually bottled in 1920.
No.
Okay.
No. It's basically it's from a recipe that was used.
So for a recipe for an illegal recipe.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. It's an illegal recipe that's now legal.
Where do we want to put that?
We'll put this.
There we go.
Anyways.
Well, yeah. It's the recipe is now legal. Very important.
Right. Yes.
Since 1933. Since late 1933. December or so, I think, is when the 21st Amendment passed and repealed the Prohibition. Sounds right?
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, something like that.
All right, so we're going to jump in and do a couple topics. We're going to rotate back into Capers, but I had to pop out the Prohibition whiskey.
Awesome.
Get the man some moonshine.
Yeah, that too. You could have brought some rot gut in here. Maybe brewed something up in your bathtub here.
What is it called?
Bathtub gin.
What's the one that you could get? Is it Silver Lightning? Is that the one you could get?
You're asking the wrong guy.
I can't remember.
I know my way around some scotches, some beers, a couple of other things here and there. I don't know my way around the whole liquor aisle.
I just know that there's like that one big moonshine, like government regulated, and I want to call it Quicksilver or something. I don't know, whatever. Anyways,
look it up on the internet, everybody.
Yeah. Google it. Silver
Spring. Nudge the puppy says.
Thanks, Nudge.
Apparently, his uncle has a still. That's very southern of him.
I'm telling you, it's like lightning or whatever. Anyways, so let's get into the first topic. This is a little weird and also shows, unfortunately, that video games can cause some sort of violence.
All those violent.
Yeah. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen,
video games.
There is an individual who lost his absolute shit over the fact that his Pokemon Go training center or gym, whatever the hell it's called, was taken over, and also, as a result, The guy apparently went on a rampage to anyone who was in the vicinity because you have to be close to capture the point. So he's literally looking for that person to hunt down, kill, maim, destroy.
All over a virtual little thing that you see that only exists right here.
Yeah, exactly. But you got to make sure that you hold it right.
Yeah, you got to be holding it, pointing it in the right direction.
Yeah.
If you do this, it's not there anymore.
Uh-oh, where'd it go? Where'd it go?
Good Lord.
There apparently is...
get somebody's ass whooped over Pokemon Go. Yeah.
Well, I know that there's... I know that there were some... early on in the Pokemon Go days, there were a lot of unsettling locations for where Pokemon were showing up.
Sure.
Like, they were showing up in ER rooms.
That's a problem.
Funeral houses, graveyards, in the middle of a church. And you got a bunch of kids that are like run in and go.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the city where I live, there's a square, like a nice public square.
Yep.
And there were multiple, like whatever spawn point or like something major was there. And so like when Pokemon Go really got going initially, there was all of a sudden this huge increase in foot traffic in the square, which is what it's there for.
Right. It's
got a fountain and benches, and there's all these little shops around it. And people started bitching about it, like, what are all these people doing here? Like, now, admittedly, a lot of them were just, walking around doing this. They were in little groups pointing here and there, and they were like, camping out in like at particular corners and alleyways and things where things would happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was also
it was a news item for about 2 weeks.
Well, there was a lot of people who were giving false information to people who were just like avid Pokemon goers.
Sure.
And it'd end up in a dark alley and they'd rob them.
Oh, well, that's no good.
But I work at Georgia Tech, so when Pokemon Go first hit, I didn't see a single person who wasn't going like this around campus. And I'll fully admit, I was doing it too. The student rec center was one of the biggest gyms in the area. So,
I tried it once. I caught like something in my living room, and then I said, "Oh, now I have to go places." Uninstall. It was just tedious for me. It's like, oh, they're the same one again. Well, it was one of those things that, I mean, it's still around.
Yeah.
And it's still being played, but it had its moment in the sun.
Yes.
And now the people that, like, the really hardcore people that are really into it, like, they're really invested. They're really invested, and it's a thing for them. So, now this guy's gonna, bring the stomp down over losing control of his gym or whatever. Jeez.
All right, just so that people don't go like, oh no, what happened? I'm doing the do. It is a Mountain Dew and a Code Red, poured together.
You should really wear like eye protection when you pour those together. Get like a smock of some sort, waiting for it to just do like the foam thing, like the meme thing that you see online all the time where somebody pours the stuff into the flask and it just whoomp.
Yep.
That huge yellow foam pile that comes flying out. I'm waiting for that to happen whenever you mix that stuff up. Jeez.
Thankfully,
how late do you stay up after this? For a while? Because that's got to keep you awake.
So, funny side story. I actually suffer from hypersomnia. So, I don't really control when I go to sleep. So I could pound these all day, but when my body goes sleep,
wow, okay, I'll stay away.
It's not. No, I'm not that. I'm on my medication.
It's not narcoleptic. It's not like you get tired and decide you got to go to sleep. It's not like where you're standing around at the corner waiting for the light to change.
No, I'm not
down
going.
You go.
No, my eyes start fluttering.
Gotcha.
And when I feel them, then I'm like, okay, wake up until you're in a place that's better than on 85. No. Okay, so, shit, I was going to say something else. Now I can't remember what I was going to say.
That's okay. What else was there anything else interesting? News-wise?
Let's see here. What is this? Yeah, we'll say this real quick because it's already been mentioned in the chat room, and that is the player Unknown's Battlegrounds mobile version is now out for iOS and Android. Another game that, if I were to try to play it, I'd get my ass whooped. For those out there who actually tuned into my wonderful foray into Fortnite, you'll know that the most accomplished thing that I did in that game was I built a house, which you're definitely not. That's not supposed to be a mechanic in the game. You're supposed to be, battle royale. You drop 100 people in, last man standing wins. And no, sorry, Nudge, I'm not going back. And so literally I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I just built a house in the middle of nowhere. So I don't know about Player Unknown Battlegrounds, but if it's anything like Fortnite, it's not my cup of tea. It really is.
That's okay. There's plenty of games out there. Plenty of stuff that you can play. Plenty of stuff you can watch, plenty of stuff you can get into.
I did get 26th place. No, Craig does not play Battlefield 1.
No, I play very little in the way of video games. It's like little time killer phone apps kind of stuff. I've got an Xbox 360 that I haven't turned on in 4 years maybe. Haven't played a game on my laptop in probably 5 years. I think the last time I played anything was like an old disc of Black and White that I had.
Was it Lionhead Studios back then? Or did
What?
they name it? It was Lionhead Studios who made Black and White.
Yeah.
What was the guy's name?
I don't know.
Anyways, Clicker Heroes? Do you play Clicker Heroes?
What are clicker heroes?
Then no, you don't. So there's a like a subgenre or just a genre of games where literally you have characters. You start off with no characters on one side, and the enemies come in from right to left, and you're literally clicking your mouse to kill the bad guys to get enough money to then buy a unit that'll help you kill it,
Okay.
and then you buy enough units, and then you can literally just leave the game and go.
All right.
I've got a clicker game on my phone, and I've got a clicker game that I play from time to time. That, of course, is Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realm, Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, clicker games.
Okay.
Click, 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 click. Well, I guess tap, 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 tap.
Tap. Sure. I'll take a look at them. I'll take a look for one and see if I can play one.
Yeah, sure. I have to do everything in rhythm, so I'm just like,
I got you.
it is exciting. Damn it. Yeah, he won't.
I'm playing a game right now called Knife Dash. That's just about this little spinning circle, and there's little things that block it, and you got a certain number of knives, and you just got to shoot them and not hit the things that block it. And so it's a clicker game. You just go click, 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 click. And so when you got to get like 10 knives on one side of the little spinning circle, and it's really moving fast, you got to go. I'd like get in there with 2 fingers and click, 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 click. That's about as clicky as I get.
That's literally just.
It's a time waster. It's like you can just keep playing and playing and playing level after level after level, and then if you play enough, you earn little coins, and you can skip levels for it. So when I hit a level that I can't beat in like four tries, it's like click, and I just move on to the next one.
Yeah,
I'm very good at just bypassing things that are too difficult for me.
Well, for the clicker games, it's it's basically rinse and repeat. You're going to go through until your party can't go any further.
Sure.
And then when you hit like the restart or refresh or whatever, you'll gain like X amount of bonus for getting as far as you did, and then you could apply that to upgrade stats and the amount of gold you get and all that stuff to help speed up the game. But then you go back again and back again. In some games, it's only one stage. Other ones have like the Idle Champions of Forgotten Realms. They actually have like weekend events where they have a couple different stages that you can get exclusive characters and art and stuff.
Thank you for joining us on Teach Craig About New Video Games.
So,
This can be a new segment every week.
So we're going to switch over to a little bit of Kuipers here, ladies and gentlemen. So it started March 6, 2018. The Kickstarter, it's still going, my friends. I will grab the URL real quick so that you can halvesies it.
It's pretty easy to find. If you go to Kickstarter and look up Capers RPG, it's the only thing that comes up.
Score!
If you're one of those people that goes through the Discover pages and you just search for RPGs, it is tagged as an RPG, so you'll find it pretty quickly. I think it's in like the second row, so it's right there.
It's right there.
It's doing okay. It's up over $6,000, 275 backers as of right now here on Thursday when we're recording. Yeah, good stuff. There's a lot of those bigger backer levels went away. They got eaten up. They were limited. They all got selected.
Well, yeah, I made damn sure I got.
You got one right.
Because there was like when I went on there's like 3 left of that. I think there wasn't
of the gangster level of the illustration. Get an illustration.
The bootlegger. No, that's not the bootlegger. What the hell is it?
Gangster.
Gangster. Yeah. Gangster,
where you get an illustration.
Yeah.
Yep.
So where are we sitting right here? Damn it.
What?
All right, we need $181.
Why do we need that?
No, shit.
Oh, for the stretch goal, yeah.
Yeah.
We're 181 shy of the 4th stretch goal right now. That'll hit by this weekend. That might if something happens, it'll probably hit by this weekend, by the end of the weekend, I would think. We'll probably hit that.
So
the weekends can be a little slow, and today was a little slow, but Fridays aren't always terrible. Sometimes they're okay. So we'll see what happens.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Capers. Do you want me to show off the art real quick?
We can show off art while I talk a little bit about what the game is about. For those who don't know,
we're going to do a little bit of a slideshow here.
I've been talking about it like crazy for the past 6 months. People are really tired of it, but it's a tabletop RPG that's sort of a superpowered game of gangsters in the Roaring '20s. So you're playing a gangster. Typical RPG. There's a GM and a bunch of players. Players are portraying gangsters who are doing gangster things and bootlegger things and mobster things in the Roaring '20s during Prohibition, and trying to get rich and live that spectacular lifestyle and be a murderous thug, but also kind of live the, glamorized, romanticized version of the gangster movie kind of thing. But you've got superpowers, but so do the other gangster rivals of yours, and so do the feds and cops have access to some people who have those superpowers. So it's not just Tommy gun shootouts in the street, it's Tommy guns and I-beams and flying around and speedsters and invisibility and all that fun stuff. That's the basic gist of the game. It uses playing cards, regular deck of playing cards, rather than dice. There's no dice in the game at all. This is your standard deck of playing cards. This is a Capers deck of playing cards.
And make damn sure you have the Jokers.
You probably can't see, but it says the Capers thing on there. There you go. There's the playing cards. For $15, you get the PDF with all the stretch goals that we hit, along with all the support materials that we generate, which are all PDFs as well. And then you'll get a discount link to get the physical book to purchase later at cost, which is super cheap, like $7 for a soft cover, $12 for a hardcover plus shipping, and you can get a discount link to get a deck of cards as well.
Which I'll be getting.
You don't need the deck of cards. You can play with any deck of cards as long as it's got 2 jokers in it. But this one will be themed for the game, and it'll have
which is why I will be getting it.
Yeah, all the face cards will have illustrations of NPCs from the game. So we're working on getting that artwork done. The Jokers have been illustrated already. We haven't done the illustrations for the face cards yet. That's all part of the Kickstarter.
Good.
But I've been running the game at conventions and game days and stuff with these decks, and people dig them. Like the little thematic thing is nice.
Right.
I'm not one for getting like the themed dice that are themed to that game. That like the 1 or the 6 is some symbol from the game or something like that. There's people that sell those, and you get them on Kickstarters. You can buy them in stores and online stores and whatnot.
So you have a question.
But I, kind of like the card thing is kind of out of the ordinary. So
what was your motivation for making such a theme?
There's nothing like it out there. In part, that's part of it. I thought about like making a supers game, and I was thinking, what do I want to do with it? And I had a bunch of ideas, but at one point I was looking at supers, and I thought, there's a billion supers games that are set in the modern day. There are all sorts of superhero games where it's like, capes and cowls and bright
Right.
colors and all that stuff. And so there's no reason to make one of those. There's a bunch of them. So what about taking the idea of supers to a different period in history? So I just bounced around a few different ideas. I eventually settled on the 20s because it's an era in history that I find personally interesting and fascinating, and I thought I'd enjoy researching it because I was going to have to if I had to write, several thousand, 20,000 words of setting material. It was kind of like I watched. I binged my way through another watching of Boardwalk Empire, and I was like, yeah, okay, I can see that guy with a superpower, and that person with a superpower, and that gal with a superpower, and just kind of went from there. And then once I got moving on it, there was a point about a third of the way into designing the game when it occurred to me that I was not designing a supers game. I was designing a gangsters game where the gangsters happened to have superpowers, and that flip in my head is what kind of made the game actually become like something really interesting because you're playing gangsters. You just instead of having just guns and whatever normal human abilities you have available, you also have some other extraordinary kind of stuff.
The funny thing is,
ancient Roman superheroes. Well, that's called mythology, and there are quite a few of those. You usually have to be at least half god in order to have those superpowers. But yeah, they're out there.
You could play the game Part-Time God.
Part-Time Gods, which Charlie and I played. You have your character here, which we played.
Gabrielle.
Which we played at AndoCon with the creator, Aloy Lasanta of Third Eye Games. This is the second edition of the game. That was his first public playing of it outside of his playtest groups and his home groups.
Awesome.
We had a good time.
It took me a little bit of time to really kind of roll into it and kind of be creative because my brain was not working Sunday morning. I'm just like,
no, that's okay. It was a mostly low key game. There's just the three players and Aloy, and he was just kind of like, oh, well, let's just see what we want to do, and he was winging it through some stuff, and we had interesting characters, and we
screwed
investigated
up where
some
he wanted
interesting
us to
things. You can't ever assume,
right?
As a GM, that you can never assume that people are going to go where you want them to go.
I'm making it really cool looking. You want to go here? I'm going to go over here.
As a GM, if you don't want the players to screw up your story, don't let them roll the dice. Or flip the cards.
That's actually
or show up at the game.
I finally got around to posting almost all the videos from AndoCon. One of them being GMing 101 with Sean Patrick Fannin and Eddie Webb. And they were talking about the different strategies of like dealing with, let's say that for them, there's dice involved in basically every single action. So what happens if the GM keeps rolling high, but your players, their rolls will kill the character and the game will end. So Eddie's like, well, that's why I always have a screen. So I could just kind of interpret the dice if I want to. And Sean's like, I would never do that. I
know, yeah. Very, very, very specific opinions on the idea of GM screens and hiding the dice and fudging rolls and sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, with very few exceptions, you have to have someone, a game master, storyteller, dungeon master, whatever, that actually has a lick of imagination, I'd say.
Well, it helps to be able to improvise a little bit. Yeah. Absolutely. Or to have access to a written adventure, that is very complete and has a lot of kind of like if the players decide to do this, here's some information. And you just know the game, the adventure and the setting and all the extraneous stuff that's in there, where the players may not go A, B, C, D, they may go A, B, J back to D, and you have to flip to that other part of the book and deal with that.
Another thing,
or just improvise and let them run wherever they want to go.
Another thing that they talked about, and I want your opinion when it comes to capers and mergers and acquisitions, is over preparing, and how in the end you're basically just throwing away time, because when you start over preparing, you kind of like focus on certain aspects. Well, let's say the adventurers don't hit any of these aspects.
Right.
Now you spent 8 hours with huge backstories for these pivotal points that they don't touch.
Mm-hmm. Lies. You will absolutely touch that again. If you have come up with a really cool encounter that you had initially planned to happen at point C in this storyline, and the players went flaring off to J and it got them around to D and they went past C, well, now C goes into the next game session or 4 game sessions down the road, or you take it and you tweak it a little bit with a more powerful monster or adversary or whatever, and it's 6 months down the road. Yep. Pre-planning, I mean, it's a question of how much time you want to put into the planning, but if you put in, if you do a fair bit of planning and you don't use all the stuff you plan for, it just gets rolled forward into whenever you're going to use it later. Or, you know, you might get 4 more game sessions down the road and go, that wasn't a very good plan anyway. But if you'd enjoyed the process of it, it was, you know, it was fun for you anyway.
Well, one thing that was mentioned was, let's say that you've got this whole adventure in mind. Your characters are on the road or about to enter the city, and there's like 2 establishments, one to the left, one to the right. And the one to the left is not, you know, you just kind of gloss over it, and you're getting really into the description of the one on the right. Of course, the adventurers go to the left, which you haven't prepared for. What Eddie said was, whatever you wanted to happen on the right side is now happening on the left side.
Yep, absolutely. Well, you know, you've got 2 places to go. Here's the crypt, and inside that crypt is a vampire, and that's what you want. You want to have a vampire fight.
Right.
And then on the left, there is the farmhouse that is down the hillside from the crypt. And the people say, we should go talk to the farmer. And they go rolling down to talk to the farmer. And then as they're going down there, and as you're just kind of role-playing through describing what's going on, and they meet the farmer's son, and blah, 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 in your head, you're thinking, okay. The vampire is related to them. That's going to tie, you know, that'll allow you to bring them back to the crypt. Like this is their great-great-great-grandfather that was buried in this crypt who's now risen as a vampire. Or that vampire is no longer in that crypt. That vampire is now in the barn at the farm.
Yep.
And you just invent a reason why the vampire's at the barn. And when they go and they fight the vampire, and then the vampire turns into mist form before you're actually to kill him, then he goes to the crypt. Maybe. Or you kill him in the barn. That's fine too.
Another bit of advice that they gave out was, if you have been basically completely thrown for a loop by your adventurers, one thing that you could try to get away with is remember the storyline for one of your favorite TV shows.
Sure.
And then just kind of pop onto there and hope that they don't catch on. If they catch on, you're like, nah, it's not really that. You know, you lie. Okay, so
you know what? My real quick note. Yes. One of my little favorites is if the players go off in a different direction. I'm not prepared, and I don't get rolling on improvising what the thing is going to be right away. Bio break. Everybody take 5. Step away from the table, and you sit there and you listen. Anybody who's not going to get a drink or snacks or go to the bathroom, they're going to sit there and talk about what's going on, and the players are going to talk, and they are going to inadvertently tell you what they want to see.
Yeah.
If the players say, I wonder if that farmer's a vampire and there's a vampire in the in the barn. Well, guess what? Now there's a vampire in the barn. You know, and when the players suggest, like, what if this is what's happening, when they're trying to figure things out, make it that thing. Yep. Number one, it allows you to continue the story and you don't have to completely shut everything down. Number 2, it gives the players a win. It gives that player like the moment of like, I told you.
So the one huge difference between the RPGs that you've created and a huge chunk of the pencil and paper RPG world is that you have removed dice.
Well,
like 8 different dice. Your D4, D6,
sure.
D8, 10, 12, 20, and 100.
And the D30 and the D14.
Well, I don't have those.
There's a lot of weird dice.
I know. Yeah, there are.
Okay.
So so for me personally, the benefit is that, you know, you're with your games, there's still, you know, a chance of completely failing or completely succeeding. Most of the time, I find the most spectacular ways to fail.
Failures are fun.
Yeah.
Failure is awesome. They're the most memorable stories. especially
Yeah.
when you succeed ultimately.
I've got-
This success down here is nice, but the failures that took you there is what makes the story great. Watch Indiana Jones. Watch Raiders of the Lost Ark. Indiana Jones fails constantly through that entire movie.
Yeah.
Constantly. But you love him and you root for him. And in the end, he comes out on top.
Let's see here. I built something to electrocute the bad guy on the business floor, but ended up knocking him out, but also myself out. And then I tried to be all creative with the dumpster monster by throwing a Molotov cocktail into it, so it was on fire.
You did throw the Molotov cocktail
I
in
did.
there.
However, almost immediately, I was thrown into said dumpster and set on fire.
Yes. And you, to this day, 2.5 years later, talk about those stories. because
Exactly.
The failures are memorable. So anyway, getting back to cards.
So with, I feel like you're given as the GM, the storyteller, you kind of get a little bit more leeway with, for when you roll dice, there's a certain finality to it.
There's an immediacy to it. It's
Yeah.
like you roll the die, that's the number, that's it.
Right.
Now, unless you've got a mechanic that allows a re-roll, or where you roll multiple dice and you take the worst or the less, the worst or the best or whatever the mechanic is. It's otherwise, normally it's just you roll the dice and that's what you got.
Right.
With Keepers, with the playing card system, it's a betting mechanic. It's basically a press your luck kind of thing. So you're flipping a card and then you're going to make a choice about okay, is that card good enough for me? You only have so many cards that you can flip for any given thing that you're doing. Let's say you've got 3. And you flip that first card and it's successful, but it's barely successful. So you gamble, hoping to get a better success, and maybe you fail in the process. Well, now you've got a failure card, so obviously you're going to flip another card, but now you're on your 3rd card, so you're going to be stuck with that card no matter what happens. And there's other ways to work around that and to deal with that, but it becomes an active process, and the players are making a choice. Active choices as they're resolving their action, rather than just, okay, I've got to roll a die and I add this static number or subtract this static number, and that's all you get for it. And you just, move on to the next thing. So I've been very pleased with, I had playtesters who came right out of the chute in the first round of playtesting saying, this is one of the most engaging game systems I've ever seen because everybody's paying attention to what you're doing.
Right.
I ran a game with 5 players, ran a short campaign with 5 players. 2 of whom were kids who were there with their parent. And I never saw the kids doing this at the table. Never. Now maybe the parents are just really good at raising their children.
Right.
But part of it, and I didn't see the adults doing it either, because when it was somebody else's turn, people were watching the card flipping to see what they were doing, and they were giving them advice and saying, hey, you know what, that deck still has a lot of face cards in there. Keep flipping.
Right. Personally, I think that just to play a little bit on both sides here, the benefit to the way that you approach the game mechanics is that you're not really taking out of the story. It's not like, okay, I have to do this, multiply that, and then what's your damage, and it's a lot of back and forth number crunching. With yours, you can keep the story moving, with the flipping of the cards, see what kind of action is going on. However, I feel like the benefit of Dungeons and Dragons and whatever is it's so structured that anyone can get away with game mastering. However, with yours, I feel like you have to have some kind of creativity.
Well,
in order to.
I was going to say anybody can game master, can GM any of my either of the games I've designed. There's more GM fiat to the game, to my game systems, than there is to D&D. Now that said, 3rd edition D&D there was very little GM fiat. They had a rule for damn near everything you could possibly do. That was actually a selling point of the system when they first came out. It's like, you want to do this? We got you covered.
Yeah.
And then it got worse and deeper and more complex and bloated full of rule books. 4th edition did its thing. It wasn't quite as bad for the bloat, but it had some similarities across classes and some weird, some trying too hard for balance and some things that didn't really work too well, that weren't welcomed by the players. 5th edition has ramped that back quite a bit, but there's still a lot of people who play Pathfinder, which is effectively, the 3rd edition rule set, with some changes. So there's a lot of, it's, there are game systems and D&D 3rd Edition and Pathfinder are certainly there, where there's just a lot of stuff that's defined by the rules. And if you can know all the rules, you can run a game.
Right.
If you've got an adventure that's prepared, you won't necessarily have to improvise as much. You may, depends on your play, the GM style and what the players decide to do. But with the games I'm designing, I'm very interested in providing like the loosest set of rules that will get the job done, and then let everybody tell the story. It's like right on nerdburgergames.com, right at the top, it talks about foregoing dense game mechanics for the purposes of telling entertaining, memorable stories.
So I mean, I personally, my preference is more story, less of the, number crunching and all that stuff. I want to be able to, kind of sink into the story and kind of assume that character instead of, I can assume the character for 5 minutes, but then we've got to do 17 different calculations to see
you've got to game the system,
right?
And you've got to know all this. That's one of the things I did too with both Mergers and Acquisitions and Capers, was like when you get to dice rolling or card flipping, everything's in one roll or flip. Like with Capers, you're flipping one card, and that's going to tell you success versus failure. It's also going to tell you the degree of success or failure, because that's based on the suit. And in Mergers and Acquisitions, you're rolling 2 dice. Oh, well, you might roll more than 2 dice, but you will roll 2 or 3 dice, and you will add 2 dice together, and that is as complex as the math gets. It's like you roll 2, add 2 numbers together. That's all anybody has to do. There's no subtractions in there anywhere. There's no multiplication, division. There's not a big table full of bonuses and penalties. And I did that on purpose. I was like, I want people to be able to roll 2 dice, add them together. This is what happens. There's a little bit of complexity built into how the dice fall out. As far as not just being pass-fail for the dice system, that becomes a guideline for how you can make the result of the roll interesting, and then you move on to the story.
It's actually thinking more on it of like the differences. You've got it's the same as video games. There are certain video games that basically have outlined every little itty-bitty thing that you can do and how you're going to do it in the game. And then there are others that literally just either try to wrap you up in the story or throw you in the deep end and see if you're going to float type of thing. I'm a huge person for story. I mean, that's what I want. I don't want the experience of, well, he had a lucky day. He was rolling natural 20s all day, and I got my ass whooped, and I was thrown on the back of the horse cart. And I didn't get to do any action because no one would resurrect my ass until they got to the final city.
Yeah, that's a problem. Well, and here's the deal. There are a lot of different types of games, and there are a lot of different types of gamers. And if you like that really big, robust system with lots of rules and lots of information, there's games out there for you. I personally am not interested in designing those games.
Well, I
can play those games.
Yeah,
I'm okay with playing them. To some extent, I'm not really interested in like playing a long campaign of an incredibly robust system, but I'll sit down and play it. But I've in my old age, I've decided that it's nice to be able to tell a story. To play a game that you can actually tell a story in 2 or 3 hours, and it doesn't take 4 hours just to get through like the part 1 of the story, because you're going to spend 2 hours in a combat.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather...
And with Capers, with that campaign, once everybody kind of knew, and this is kind of a selling point for the game too, was like once we got a few sessions in to the point where everybody who was playing, the 5 players, all were very familiar with the system. They really knew their characters. They knew the synergies between their characters, what they were all capable of doing together. And we ran a combat that was 5 superpowered characters versus 3 superpowered adversaries, along with like 5 or 6 mooks, mob goons.
Right.
And that whole thing ran in like 45 minutes. It's a fight between 10 people.
Right.
That only took, that took 45 minutes, and it was big and complex, and a lot of interesting things happened, but it was like 4 rounds of fight. 4 rounds of 5 rounds of fight, but it didn't take an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Right. One huge benefit to your approach, if you were to apply to video games, is that you wouldn't have to worry. we have such a rigid set of instructions on what you can and can't do, and if you want to do this, then you have to do all that. Well, what happens if you find an action that's not outlined, and you're like, well, you can't do that, and so you're always like, well, why can't I?
Well, that's the beauty of the role-playing game in general. Is you know, if something's not clearly defined or not defined at all, really, in the game rules, there hopefully is enough depth to the game system that the player can say, I want to do this. The GM says, okay, well, that'll be this kind of a check or whatever. And everybody says, okay. And everybody at the table goes, that sounds good. And from that point forward, that's what it is. For that table,
Right.
That's what it is.
House rules.
Yeah, it's just, get consensus on it. If everybody at the table feels it's fair and you stay consistent with it, that's where you go. I mean, both of my games, like one of the first things in the rule chapter was like, there's a whole bunch of rules down here. Not everything's covered. If you come up with something that's not covered here, make a call, stay consistent, make sure everybody agrees with it, and that's the new rule.
That's how it should be, at least.
Well, in video games, it's harder to do that.
Well, right, yeah. Because
you have to plan for like as many contingencies as you possibly can. You don't have a GM who's prepared to, or even players for that matter, who are prepared to,
right.
Make up something on the fly.
One of the best examples that gets shown around the internet a lot is you got like those survival horror games where there's a locked door. However, the door has been basically sheared almost in half. So literally, your character could pull his hand through and unlock the door. However, you cannot do that. It's seen as an invisible wall. Or you have one of those like on rail games where they don't want you to really explore. So what looks like the entrance to an open area, you're just literally walking against an invisible wall because they don't want you to go over there.
Yep, there's nothing over there.
Nothing over there.
Nothing's been rendered.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you can, this goes back to GMing is you got to roll with the punches. No one's going to actually do the adventure exactly how you think it should be done, which game developers of any type, board games, card games, pencil and paper, digital games, there is not one right way to play a game, ever. People are going to play it the way they want to play it. Some of them are going to be absolute asshats about how they play it.
But no, you're playing bad, wrong, fun.
Did you hear about there's the gentleman behind? Oh my gosh, what the heck is that? I'm blanking out on Braid's Tale. No, the fuck is it? Jonathan Blow. He's a indie developer. Braid. That's what it is. Just Braid. Hopefully he stopped this, but he used to YouTube stock for anybody who uploaded a video of his game, and if they weren't playing it the way that he envisioned the system to be played, he would comment about it on the actual YouTube video.
He'd crap all over him. Yeah. I have said these words or words very much like them a number of times over the past 6 months or so as ramping up toward Capers. Capers, and I'm gonna adapt it for the Kickstarter. Capers is on Kickstarter right now. You can get it for $15. When you get this game, when it's in your hands, whether it be digitally in your hands on your laptop or your tablet or whatever, or whether you get a book that you can hold and smell and everything else and crack the spine on, once it's in your hands, it's not my game anymore. I don't give two toots what you do with the game and how you play it. I don't, if you wanna revamp the system, if you want to do something really weird with the cards that I didn't do, it makes no difference to me. If you're having fun with it, I don't care. I really don't. Not my game anymore. You bought it. It's yours.
Yeah. No, it's one of those.
Take that, George Lucas.
It's actually a common symptom of a lot of creators out there is that they've busted their balls for years to refine this game or whatever system, and then when they give it out to the public, individuals who've never seen this, and then they're able to put their hands on it and kind of mess around, people get really stressed when individuals aren't using it the way they envisioned.
The problem, as I see it, there was the entire development process and all that investment and time and effort and money that they put into it was with the goal of giving people a game that they will play and experience a particular thing the way I'm trying to do that with this video game.
Right.
Whereas if they were to put all of that time and money and effort and everything into it with the intention that I'm going to give you this gift that you can do anything you want with all these little pieces that I crafted for you to play with. And the intention is that you're going to give the players something that they can do as they wish with. It's a completely different beast.
Right.
It also takes a lot of the stress out of the situation. It's like this game is good, maybe great. Is it perfect? No, because perfect is the enemy of great. I'm going to make it as good as it can get in a reasonable amount of time, and trust the players and the GMs out there to take it the next step. Because I don't know everything you want out of the game. Anybody who buys this, I don't know what you want out of it. I don't want to know what anyone else wants out of it. Specifically, they want to play gangsters with superpowers.
Right.
But, what are some of the specific things they want out of it? Well, they want something a little more grim and gritty. Well, my game's not grim and gritty, but you can make it grim and gritty.
Right.
You can just tweak a few rules with hit points and how people deal damage, and you can make it ridiculously grim and gritty. Change the dying rule.
The offshoot that I played, I think we got a little bit dark and gritty because I took out an informant's kneecaps.
Yeah.
We basically shot and stabbed him all over the place and then put him in the carriage.
Yeah, that's one of those things that happens when everybody plays like bad guys. When you're playing anti-heroes and criminals and all that sort of thing. Yeah, there's a tendency to just kind of take out your frustrations.
I need to know who your boss is. Pow!
I have come to realize that I've created Murders and Acquisitions, a game about backstabbing your way up the corporate ladder by any means necessary. Capers, which is about gangsters. Now, ostensibly, you can play the members of law enforcement. The game supports that, but it's kind of about gangsters. And then there's a horror game where the whole point is that your characters are all going to die, and in a horror game you kind of want they probably kind of deserve it for doing some stupid stuff. So 3 games so far that are fairly well developed, and there's not a single heroic one amongst them, other than if you do the thing that is play the federal agents. But even then, you can play corrupt federal agent.
I'd be the corrupt fed.
Well,
I'd be feeding the mob all the information.
In the game, what's the federal agent that I want to play? It's cliche, but you can play it. It's here's my federal agent. He's out to do all these great things, but I've got to take a virtue and a vice. And so I'll take this virtue that'll make him kind of upstanding and good and everything, but his vice is going to be he's an alcoholic. So he's there to uphold the law, and he's going to be taking a drink.
Yeah. So, if people were to start posting, video or streaming live sessions, would you tune in? Would you be critiquing it, or you just be as the creator, as this is your,
it's my baby.
It's your baby.
Well, here's the deal. I ran a game that we recorded for an actual play for DSPN Presents, which is on the Don't Split the Podcast network, and I ran that one. So it's kind of that's if you watch that, if you listen to that, that's kind of the style of game that I run, right? It's what I kind of envision my version of the game to be. The One Shot podcast has also done a 3-parts AP of Capers, and being run by James D'Amato, who's the owner and host of the One Shot podcast. He runs most of the games, and I've listened now to 2 parts of it, and it is a wildly different game. They're using the rules. They're playing gangsters with superpowers.
Right.
They're using stuff out of this book. They just he repurposed things and kind of wrote a different story, and there's a distinctly different feel to it than what I run. But that's okay, because I know that's the type of games those guys like to play.
Right.
So, yeah, would I listen? Would I listen to the whole thing? That's rough, not because I dislike, your particular game style or anything. I'm just not a huge listener of actual play podcasts. I'll listen to some here and there, but to listen ongoing, it's like my best time to listen to podcasts is while I'm at work, and the only time that I can really listen to like that type of thing where I'm going to pay attention long term, like for multiple episodes, is if I'm doing something at work that I can just kind of go on autopilot,
Right.
and I don't have to be thinking too hard about what I'm doing, and that doesn't happen a lot with me.
It sounds like when I try.
So it's hard for me to listen to anything that's not just kind of fluff,
Yeah.
you know, or an episode of something that's just like everything's contained in this 1 hour. For these stories that they're doing via This American Life, or I'm listening to some podcast where they're making fun of a movie for an hour, you know, where I can just, you know, if I miss some of it, it's not a story that they're telling. I miss a joke. I miss a joke.
Right. No, I think for me personally, it would be cool if I were to ever, if I were to ever finish tweaking my own pencil and paper that's hidden in, over there. It's no, not yet. If that were to ever get out in the wild, I don't know, like, I would rather be like playing it either as a player or the GM than just kind of watching people. It's not like I'm not going to dislike it. It's just my interest isn't. Unless it's like someone famous who's doing this stuff, then yeah, sure.
That's a different beast.
Yeah, exactly. But if it's if it's like Joe Schmo and his 4 friends and they're having a lot of fun, then cool. But I'm probably not going to tune in because it's not. I'd rather be playing.
I'd rather be playing it or GMing it myself. Yeah. It's the same reason I don't watch people playing video games. If I want to play a video game, I'll play a video game. It's just not. I'm not into it. There's plenty of people who are. That's great. Critical Role is hugely popular. That's great. It's bringing people to the hobby. Got no problem with it.
What's the
have
other
I
one
watched?
they did?
I have not watched a single minute of Critical Role.
I've never seen.
I'm sure it's great. I've heard nothing but good things about it, and it's growing the hobby. But
there was
someday I'll watch like an episode just so I can say I have.
I don't think I actually.
Will I watch it religiously? Probably not.
I don't think I actually made it through an entire Critical Role episode. However, there was another one. There was another pencil and paper that they did. It was it had. Was it Will Wheaton on there? I can't remember.
Well, he's done role-playing games on tabletop, on the tabletop show.
Yeah, it was a Geek and Sundry.
It might have been a Geek and Sundry thing. I mean, they've got a bunch of different actual plays. They do board game stuff. They do different role-playing games. Like there's one thing that they're doing on there. I can't remember what it's called, but it's hosted by Ivan Van Norman. It's Dread. They use the Dread game, and it's all very interactive, and people are in outfits, and there's physical stuff that's involved, and then they also have to pull blocks from the Dread Tower as part of that. It's like tension stories, Well, that's what the Dread story, if you ever played Dread, which is the game that you pull from a Jenga tower rather than rolling dice, it's all about building tension. So they've got a whole, I can't remember what it's called. I feel like an idiot. He was on my podcast and talked about it. Sorry, Ivan. But yeah, I mean, it's not my thing. I'll listen here and there. But I've got enough other stuff that I just like listening to that's like nice contained 1 hour bits that
Titan's Great.
I stick with that. There you go. Yeah, that's the one that Titan's Great. Is that the one that
Will Wheaton,
Amy Dallin, some other people?
Yeah, they have the list up there.
I know that's Amy. Just looking at the photo
Hank
of her.
Green,
comic
Allison.
She was
Hillsap,
kind of a comic
Bailey.
book specialist when everything started, and she's in all sorts of other stuff now.
Yeah,
is Titan's Grave? Is that the one where they developed the whole setting as part of the thing?
I think so.
It uses the Dragon Age rules, or a variant of the Dragon Age rules.
I can't remember.
I don't remember the specifics.
Yeah,
I'm not going to stop talking about it because I'm going to get it wrong.
But that's the only one I watched. That one,
sure,
because the story caught me.
Mm-hmm.
But Critical Role,
that's cool.
I'd rather be playing Dungeons and Dragons.
That's
watching
cool.
people play.
Critical Role is not going to suffer for you not watching.
Yeah,
It's doing just fine.
Oh, jeez.
None of the Critical Role people. Matthew Mercer's not going to show up and like slap you around and say, "What the hell, man?"
Well, no, he is coming to MomoCon, so he might search me on.
I'm just going to text him real quick because everybody in the game design industry, we know each other.
Yeah, we know everybody.
and we'll have Matthew Mercer. We'll record it, put it up on the podcast, all that. Here's Matthew Mercer beating the crap out of Charlie.
flap, flap, flap.
Totally changed my opinion of Matthew.
So we kind of alluded to this early on, and that was that we were at a convention called AndoCon.
Mm-hmm.
So how was your experience at AndoCon as being one of the highlighted developers?
Well, AndoCon was weird for me because a lot of my involvement in AndoCon was done before the convention started because I helped Ando to organize a bunch of stuff. I ran the KickStarter that got it kind of rolling, managed that for him, and I arranged, I wrangled prize support and stuff that we gave away all sorts of games over the course of the weekend, and I helped to arrange guests and get special events set up and everything. So the convention came around, and I was also 3 days post Kickstarter. So the way I planned it was I was like, all right, Friday, I'm not going to schedule a great deal of anything. I'm just going to kind of enjoy the convention. I'll use that as a decompression day after 3 days of Kickstarter. And then Saturday, I made the mistake of scheduling 5 things from the first slot to after midnight.
Yep.
And I busted my ass and I was wiped out. And then Sunday, I didn't have anything else to do either. So I just we played that game with Eloy, had lunch with him and some other people. We talked to an aspiring game designer, and Eloy and I critiqued some stuff about his game and started to redesign things for him, which he didn't ask us to do, but he was very good-natured about it. So at the very least, we sent him home with some things to think about.
If someone's looking at your game who's made games, whatever they say, at least think it over.
Yeah, just listen. That's fine. He could have just dumped everything, walked out. He could have walked out of the hotel. That we geez. That was 2 hours of those guys just rambling when I just asked them, can you look at the character sheet and tell me what you think? Which is where it started. But no, everything was fine. It was a busy weekend, just because Saturday really wiped me out. But I had a good time. I'm glad it's back. It was a little smaller crowd than in the past, but it had been gone for a year, so it needs to kind of rebuild its audience. But it had the crowd that was there was very enthusiastic. For the space we had, it was very full. There was you never walked into a room and thought, geez, there's nothing going on here. There was always plenty of people for the size of the space.
I heard that there had to be some
I had a fun time.
Flow over.
There was some overflow into some of the. They had a little bit of space available that they could roll people into if they filled up rooms, and they did a little bit. So Ando is going to have to look at the space situation and figure out if that space will do the job for next time around, or if we need to maybe look for a different venue and how to handle.
Well, the only thing is
the money involved in getting that, and blah, blah, there's all sorts of. But
we're not
Ando. You don't have to do anything about that right now. You go ahead and just relax for a little while.
Yeah,
you got lots of time.
But I would make one suggestion, and that is to move the registration table away from the door to the one panel room, because everyone congregates around there.
Well, that one talks. Panel room, there were 3 panel rooms, but that one that was right there, yeah.
There were other panel rooms?
Yeah, there were. Well, there were 3 rooms, and one of them was the private gaming room, which never really had a panel in it. It was just a big conference table that had different gaming events going on it.
Well,
but then there was another room that had stuff going on too, where I think they were Florida or American Whammy ran some of their game show stuff there. I guess the one across from registration, not to belabor the point, the one across from registration was the primarily panel room.
Yeah.
Mostly what was going on was panels. Okay, so
cut
all that out in post. I was babbling.
So the thing is, it made it hard for individuals to hear.
Yeah.
Because they had to close the door, and then even with the door closed, you could still, hear the volume through the door.
And they may not have had a great, I don't know. They may not have had a lot of choices about where they could put registration that wouldn't get in the way of the rest of the hotel functions.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Something to think about.
But yeah, it went well. I had a good time. I'm very glad it's back. Very glad.
Even though actually, you know what? Well, I was going to go to AndoCon anyways, but I did do a little bit of. I helped out Ando just a little bit with recording and streaming the opening ceremonies.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I was basically left to my own
devices.
There you go.
You're welcome.
Duh.
I write as part of my job.
So so part of me was kind of like, what am I supposed to be doing? I don't know. Like, what am I? Like, I don't have a table. I don't have panels.
It was the first year back. Things were a little messy once in a while. There was some confusion on some stuff. It'll get hammered out.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
I don't know. I don't even know if that makes sense when I just typed. But anyways,
I'm gonna look at my Kickstarter again. It probably hasn't moved. It's starting to get late.
On the East Coast.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the West Coast people are getting home from work. Somebody might pop in and yeah, it looks like today's going to be a light day. It is what it is. It's 2 weeks to go. 2 weeks from tonight. Right now, the Kickstarter will be over.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, exactly 2 weeks from right now, the Kickstarter will be done. 9:00 p.m. So, like the time that we were spending here talking, 2 weeks from now, that is the time where I will be making the final changes to the Kickstarter page, because once the Kickstarter ends, people who don't run Kickstarters, you don't know this, when your Kickstarter winds down and ends, and it does the countdown, 3, 2, 1, boom, and the little everything, there's certain, like some of the things gray out and color scheme changes and everything. You can't change anything on the page anymore. It is locked in place. So in that last hour, you need to go in and say, okay, I'm going to transform it from the Kickstarter page into the advertisement for the upcoming publishing.
Gotcha.
And get rid of, you remove the stretch goals and you just talk about here's all the stuff that's part of the game. You don't include the information about actually getting to it anymore.
Wow. I mean, the obvious thing is so that if you start floundering, you can't, as the creator, you can't go back and say, what? That was never part of that goal.
Well, the stretch goals, all that stuff. I mean, I could empty the whole main page, the whole the story, the whole from what the game is about all the way down to the the who's on the team kind of stuff. That whole thing, I could empty that whole thing. I could just delete that whole thing. I can't touch the backer levels because the backer level information, the text in the backer levels is locked the moment somebody takes that backer level. So you have to be really sure you've got that nailed down before you press the button to go. So yeah. I mean, you go in there, you switch a few things around on the page in that last hour, and then you just kind of sit around and wait for the countdown to finish up. I imagine I have to talk to my podcast partner Mike about it to see if he wants to get on the mics via Skype for the last 10 minutes, which is what we did for Murders and Acquisitions. We recorded a little bit of, well, this is where we ended up, see whether that's going to happen. Capers on Kickstarter. Go see it now. Go check it out.
There it is.
You need some love. It's over $6,000. I want to hit 5 digits. Come on, I want to hit 10,000. Come on. It's possible. Could happen.
Where's Sean at now?
Where's who?
Sean
Patrick Fannin. Oh, he's got to be over 20,000 by now, at least, right?
I don't know what the hell. Save projects. I think that's what it
There you go.
23,115.
Yep, 23. Take a look. As long as we're pimping Kickstarters, look for Gears of Defiance. That's by a guy I know named Ryan.
Defiance.
Gears of DEFI.
DEFI. ANC.
ANCE. There you go. By Ryan Schoon. 6,700.
Gears of Defiance.
It's been going just for a couple of days. Yeah, it's a game all about fighting against the oppression. It's kind of medieval themed. It's medieval or
Tales of revolutions such as Les Mis and The Last Exile.
Yeah, it's fighting against oppressive regimes, and your characters are part of the lower class and trodden upon, and it's fighting back against that.
Lunatic and Maniac plays. He creates pencil and paper RPG games. That's why I said good pencil and paper awesomeness. Which probably doesn't make much sense, but in my head, it made perfect sense.
It is pretty awesome.
It is awesome.
Is it perfect? No, but it's pretty awesome. I guarantee you'll have fun. It's got pretty artwork. I'm so happy. I've received more compliments on the artwork. Every time I'm at a convention, right? And every time I'm at a convention or doing a podcast or something like this, and somebody remarks about they really dig the artwork, I have to say that's Beth Varney. She is doing all the artwork for the entire game, every single piece that's in it, with the exception of like one or two graphics that aren't artsy. They're going to be more like graphic, graphic design graphics. Yeah, she's primarily. She works professionally as a indie comic artist, and fills a number of roles there. She worked on Murders and Acquisitions a little bit, and since she works in comics, I was like, oh, this is gonna be a 20s thing, and it's supers, and it only makes sense that it's in a comic style, so to speak. So she's been doing the research into the 1920s and the period, and looking at clothing and cars and all that kind of stuff, whereas most of the stuff that she does is modern day. And a little bit of fantasy kind of stuff. So there's, in your comic books and your indie comics, those are pretty common. Right. Is the modern day and the fantasy oriented kind of stuff. Yep. So she's been digging doing pinstripe suits and flapper dresses, and there's the one illustration of the three people that are firing guns. If you look on the back, in the background, this was her idea. I didn't tell her what to do with the background. She decided there should be like billboards, and so we brainstormed a little bit for like billboards from the 20s. So there's like I'm trying to remember what's up there. There's like can you zip back to that one or
I'm trying
forward
to see
to
if
it?
I can't.
We can let it roll through to it. We can zoom in on it, take a look at those billboards again. But there's like, it's very 20s, like advertisements for things. Not that one. The one when we get to there's three people that are standing at a car shooting guns.
Let's see here. I think it's the next one after this one.
But she suggested like billboards, ? And I came back at her and said, well, here's some ideas. And she took those and tweaked around a little bit. So yeah, just like all those little things, like billboards and the particular clothing styles and those cars and trucks and so forth. There's a few other things that are going to be in illustrations that are like that. There's going to be like a cigarette girl illustration, and there's going to be some stuff that's very, there you go. Yeah, one of them is Federal Oats. Like selling the big canister of Federal Oats. Yep. What does it say? It says, makes a kid strong or something like that. Which is just a play off of an actual Oats ad that I found from the 20s. And we just renamed it to a different company rather than, of course, using a real
licensing.
Yeah, well, the company's probably defunct. It wouldn't have even had been a problem, but we just decided, well, we'll just make up stuff.
Well, come on. I mean, was it the copyright for Mickey Mouse is coming up?
The copyright for Mickey Mouse has been coming up for like 30 years. They keep extending it.
But there's a fear that that extension is not going to happen because of feuding. Anywho.
That'll be fun. There'll be all sorts of people just copying the little mouse guy.
You mean
just giving him a different
basically
name.
what Mexico and China are already doing?
Well, that's a whole different beast, yeah, because it's kind of hard to prosecute that stuff.
My uncle had a Mickey Mouse, an illegal Mickey Mouse T-shirt from Mexico, where Mickey and his friends were on like a hippie bus with smoke coming out the windows.
Oh no!
Oh yes! I love that shirt.
I don't know if Uncle Walt ever got into any of that stuff.
But so our show's almost up, but
yeah.
I want to give Craig one more chance to give us the pertinent information on how to get information on your games, and of course, I'll
where can they find me on the internet?
Yes. There we go.
There you go. Well, the Capers Kickstarter is going on right now, of course. That's your best deal for getting a hold of a brand new game, obviously.
They still run the deal where you can get both?
Yeah, you can get Murders and Acquisitions as an add-on to it. If you just scroll down the page to the section of add-ons, it'll tell you what to do, and we'll hook you up with the second game. So technically, you could go to drivethrurpg.com and get Murders and Acquisitions, but you can get a better deal with the Capers Kickstarter if you're into getting Capers as well. M&A will cost you less. And you can go to nerdburgergames.com for all sorts of stuff to to check out. I'm pretty transparent with game design stuff. I like to talk about it and build audience, build interest. Because I'm a little bitty game design studio, and I can't sit on a secret and say I'm gonna announce a secret new game, a year from now. No, I got to start talking about it now. I got to get people, excited and interested in it for a year. There you go, die laughing. I do talk about the process of designing that game.
That was the game that we had the private session for at AndoCon.
Yeah, the late night 10 o'clock session. Two tables running at the same time.
Yeah.
It was loud.
It was loud.
And everybody was laughing, but everybody was dying, so that was supposed to happen.
Of course, you got to choose. You're given roles.
Yeah. What did you play?
The dad.
The parent?
The parent, yeah.
Yeah, the parent character.
So I said, well, what was my name? Was it Sassy Stud McDaddy or something?
Okay, that's terrible.
It was great.
But anyway, you can learn about game design stuff from me at nerdburgergames.com. I'm at nerdburgercraig on the Twitter. You can also listen to me and Mike, my friend, who have been running a podcast for 5 years as of AndoCon. Every single Wednesday, brand new episode for 5 years, because neither one of us wants to be the one who gives up on it now. So we're going to do this until one of us dies.
Yeah.
And that's nerdburgershow.com. It's like an hour-long potpourri of nerdy stuff and discussion and humor. So that's me on the internet. Yay! Woohoo!
You're making me see here. February 8th, 2009 was the very first Altered Confusion podcast.
Oh my gosh. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, no. Well, we took podcasts for a bit, and then we switched over to video, and then people were like, hey, so I can't watch your video, but I want to listen in to what you're talking about. I'm like, all right, fine. So the podcast is now up to date on iTunes, or you can watch the video on YouTube, or you can listen to the podcast straight from www.AlteredConfusion.com, or you can see the video straight from www.AlteredConfusion.com. Or you, so, yeah. Oh, since this is apparently something that I have to do, here are the social media links for Altered Confusion. Twitch.tv/AlteredConfusion. Of course, it's Twitch. If you're watching this live, you found us. If you're watching this, listen to us or watching this afterwards, every single Thursday, twitch.tv/AlteredConfusion, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we do a show. I already told you the website, www.AlteredConfusion.com. You can find us on Facebook by just typing Altered Confusion. You can find us on YouTube at AlteredConfusionLLC. Or you can find us on Twitter at AlteredConfusio. That's Altered Confusion without the N, because the N would break the internet. And also there was a character limit when we first opened up the account. But, whatever. That's the Altered Confusion stuff. I will pimp myself real quick. Ladies and gentlemen, there's this phenomenal thing called Patreon. Patreon is a service that allows you, the fans, the audience, to help Altered Confusion out by doing a monthly donation. Now, of course, this donation could be anywhere from $1 up. It is a monthly donation, so at the beginning of every single month, it will pull from whatever source you've locked into. This money goes into Altered Confusion, strictly for Altered Confusion, to handle the upkeep of the equipment, to allow us to go to conventions. Travel's not in that budget. Travel comes out of my budget. That's not going to be in the Altered Confusion budget, but it's basically like paying for electricity at conventions. Like MomoCon is going to be $172 for the 4 days, which is better than Canuga. No, was Canuga worse? I can't remember. Anyways, even if you get a table for free, you have to pay for the electricity at a lot of the conventions, or we might have to pay for a badge. So the money helps us to go to conventions, so we go to more conventions, talk to more of you, as well as maybe update some of the equipment. There was a request for me to take a picture of my interview setup.
Oh, whew. I was
No.
whoa.
No. My interview setup, the camcorder, the tripod, the preamp, of course all the microphones and all that stuff. So I will place it, and I'll actually name each piece to show you how long we've had it in our arsenal. So I do want to shout one more time, ladies and gentlemen, Capers is still going on Kickstarter right now. And so you just need to go over to Kickstarter and type in Capers RPG, and you can find it that way, and you donate the money. Donate the money. And while you're at it, add Mergers and Acquisitions to your order.
Thank you, Lunatic, for sharing the Kickstarter with your friend.
Okay, so ladies,
Tell them to share it with all their friends.
yes. Anyone either watching this live, recorded, or listening to this recorded, tell your friends. NerdburgerGames.com will give you all of Capers and more, and you can't miss out on that.
It's all about word of mouth. I don't have a marketing budget. This is my marketing.
What is marketing?
This and podcasts. That's my marketing.
So let's see. I'm just going to use this one right here.
So word of mouth, everybody.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we have reached the end of our show. I would like to thank our guest, Craig Campbell, once again, for joining us on the Altered Confusion Thursday Night Hangout. Craig gets to go home with a fun gift for succeeding and continued success. But I do want to thank everyone for tuning in to the Altered Confusion Thursday Night Hangout. For myself, Charlie, and Craig, it's been a pleasure to give you everything coming out of our heads, our mouths, and of course, our hearts. I will be back here next Thursday. Craig will probably be kickstarting still.
I'll be doing this, looking at the page.
And hopefully Zelius overcomes his plague.
Yes,
and,
please, Zelius, get better.
And he will return. If he doesn't, I'll replace him. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you later.
Bye-bye.